Argentina was richer than France, richer than Germany, richer than Italy, one of the 10 wealthiest nations on Earth. Buenos Aires looked like Paris, opera houses, grand boulevards, champagne in cafes. The future looked golden, unlimited. And then it vanished. Not in a war, not in a single moment, but slowly, decade after decade, until the country that had everything couldn't stop losing. So here's the question. How do you destroy one of the richest countries in the world? Because what happened to Argentina wasn't an accident. It was a choice, a series of choices, each one seeming reasonable, each one leading deeper into a trap. Let's go back. Late 1800s. Europe is booming, cities growing, populations exploding, and they need food, wheat, beef, leather, wool. Argentina has all of it. The pampas, endless grasslands, soil so rich you could grow anything, climate perfect for cattle. And something else, something crucial, the Rio de la Plata. A massive river flowing to the Atlantic. Ships could sail deep inland, load up with grain and meat, reach Europe in weeks. Argentina wasn't just rich in resources, it was perfectly positioned to sell them. And Europe was hungry, so Argentina fed them and got rich. By 1913, Buenos Aires had more cars per capita than Paris, more telephones than Rome, one of the world's first subway systems. Immigrants poured in, Italians, Spaniards, Germans, Jews fleeing pogroms. Everyone wanted the Argentine dream. But here's the crack in the foundation. Who owned the land? Not the immigrants, not the workers, a tiny elite. Families controlling vast estates, thousands of hectares. They owned the cattle, the wheat, the ports, and they liked it that way. So when the economy boomed, the wealth didn't spread. It concentrated at the top, and everyone else? They worked, they hoped, they waited, but their share never came. Because the elite didn't want to share. They wanted to preserve what they had, and that's where the trap begins. But they didn't see it. Not yet. Because in the 1920s, everything still looked fine. Exports strong. Money flowing. Buenos Aires still glittering. But underneath something was shifting. The world was changing. And Argentina wasn't. First problem, dependency. Argentina's wealth came from selling food to Europe. That's it. No industry, no manufacturing. No technology. Just agriculture and cattle. When Europe bought, Argentina prospered. When Europe stopped, Argentina had nothing. And in 1929, Europe stopped. The Great Depression hit. Global trade collapsed. Prices for wheat and beef plummeted. Argentina's income vanished overnight. No backup plan, because they'd never needed one. So what do you do when your entire economy disappears? You panic. The government tried to protect the elite, subsidies for landowners, tariffs, currency controls. But none of it worked, because the world had changed. Europe was buying from new suppliers now, the United States, Canada, Australia, countries that had industrialized, that had diversified. Argentina was being left behind, and the elite refused to adapt, because adaptation meant change. And change meant losing control. So instead of building factories, they protected farms. Instead of investing in education, they hoarded wealth. And the country stagnated. But stagnation breeds frustration. And frustration breeds violence. The first military coup. The army overthrows the government. Promises to restore order, to fix everything. But they don't. Because they're generals, not economists. So they centralize power, suppress dissent, blame outsiders, and make things worse. But here's the twist. The instability doesn't destroy the elite. It protects them. Because in chaos, people cling to what they know. The old families, the old systems. And the elite use that fear to stay in control. They ally with the military, block reforms, and Argentina spirals deeper. Then comes World War II, And for a moment it looks like salvation. Europe needs food again. Exports surge. Money floods back. The economy rebounds. But it's a mirage, because the wealth still isn't spreading, still concentrating at the top, and the workers are getting angrier. Enter Juan Perón, a colonel with a message. He speaks to the workers. The descamisados, the shirtless ones. He promises them dignity, rights, a share of the wealth. And they love him. He wins in a landslide, and he delivers. Sort of. He raises wages, nationalizes industries, builds hospitals and schools, gives workers benefits they'd never had. And for a while, it feels like Argentina is finally changing. But here's the problem. Perón isn't building a sustainable economy. He's redistributing wealth without creating new wealth. Spending money the country doesn't have. Printing currency to pay for programs, borrowing to cover deficits, and inflation starts creeping in. But people don't notice. Not yet. Because wages are rising faster than prices. And for the first time, ordinary Argentines feel rich. They buy cars, appliances, homes. They believe the dream is real. But it's not. It's a bubble. And bubbles always burst. By the 1950s, the money is running out. Exports declining. Industries inefficient. Government broke. And Perón's solution? More spending, more printing, more borrowing. Because stopping means admitting failure. And he can't do that. So he doubles down. And inflation accelerates. Prices rise, savings evaporate. The middle class panics. And the elite, who never liked Perón, plot his removal. Another coup. The military overthrows Perón. Promises stability. Promises to fix everything. But they don't. Because the problem isn't Perón. The problem is the system. A system where wealth is hoarded, not invested. Where power is seized, not earned. Where short-term survival trumps long-term planning. And that system doesn't change. It just cycles. Civilian government, military coup, civilian government, military coup. Over and over. Each time promising reform. Each time delivering chaos. And through it all, the economy keeps dying. Inflation becomes hyperinflation. Prices double every month, then every week, then every day. People rush to spend money before it becomes worthless. Stores change prices multiple times a day. Savings accounts wiped out. Pensions meaningless. And trust collapses. In government, in institutions, in the future. Because when money loses meaning, everything loses meaning. Why save when savings evaporate? Why invest when returns are worthless? Why plan when tomorrow is chaos? So people stop planning. They survive, day to day, crisis to crisis. And the country that once looked like Paris becomes a warning. But even warnings can get darker. The military seizes power again. But this time, they don't just promise order, they enforce it. With terror. The dirty war. Thousands disappear. Activists, students, union leaders, anyone who questions, thrown from planes into the ocean, tortured in secret prisons, erased. And the economy? Still collapsing. Because terror doesn't create prosperity. It destroys trust. And without trust, economies die. By 1982, the military is desperate. They need legitimacy. They need a victory. So they invade the Falkland Islands, a tiny British territory in the South Atlantic. They think Britain won't fight. They're wrong. Britain sends a fleet, crushes them, and the military regime collapses in humiliation. Democracy returns, but the damage is done. Economy in ruins, debt crushing, inflation out of control, and the people are exhausted. Hyperinflation peaks, 5,000% annually. The currency is worthless. Riots break out. Supermarkets looted. The president resigns early. Argentina hits rock bottom. But even at rock bottom, the cycle doesn't break. The 1990s bring reforms, privatization, open markets, currency pegged to the dollar. And for a while it works. Inflation stops, investment returns, growth resumes. But the underlying problems remain. Elites still hoarding wealth, government still overspending, economy still dependent on exports. And when the next crisis hits, 2001, it's catastrophic. The currency peg collapses, banks freeze accounts, people lose their life savings. Again, riots, chaos, 5 presidents in 2 weeks, and Argentina defaults on its debt, the largest sovereign default in history. So why does this matter now? Because Argentina's story isn't just about Argentina. It's about what happens when a country chooses short-term comfort over long-term survival. When elites protect privilege instead of building opportunity. When governments print money instead of creating value. When societies stop trusting each other. Argentina had everything: resources, geography, talent, opportunity, and it lost it all. Not because of bad luck, not because of external enemies, but because of choices. Choices to preserve instead of adapt, to concentrate instead of distribute, to survive instead of thrive, and those choices compounded, decade after decade, crisis after crisis, until the country richer than France became a cautionary tale. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Argentina isn't unique. The same patterns appear everywhere. Countries depending on a single resource, elites refusing to share power, governments printing money to avoid hard choices, societies that stop trusting institutions. It's happening now. Different places, different forms, but the same disease. The belief that you can preserve the present without building the future. That you can consume wealth without creating it. That you can avoid change by denying it. Argentina proved that doesn't work. The country that had everything lost it all. Not in a single moment, but slowly. Choice by choice. Crisis by crisis. Until the dream became a warning. And the warning became a lesson. A lesson the world still hasn't learned. Because it's easier to believe you're different. That your country won't make the same mistakes. That your elite will be wiser. That your government will be smarter. But Argentina thought that too, in 1913, when they were richer than France, when Buenos Aires looked like Paris, when the future looked golden. And then, it all collapsed. Not because it had to, but because they let it. And that's the real tragedy. Not that Argentina fell, but that it didn't have to. The resources were there, the talent was there, the opportunity was there, but the will to change, missing. And without that will, everything else is just potential, wasted, lost, gone. Argentina isn't a country, it's a question every nation must answer. Will you adapt or preserve? Will you build or hoard? Will you trust or fear? Because the choice determines everything. And once you choose wrong, the cycle begins. And breaking it? That's the hardest thing of all. Argentina is still trying, still struggling, still hoping. That one day, the country that had everything can find it again. But hope isn't a strategy, and dreams aren't enough. You need choices, the right choices, made early, made consistently, made with the future in mind. Argentina didn't make those choices, and the world watched it fall. The question is, who's next?